China has identified the cause of the mysterious new virus.
Coronavirus.
For the first time in a while, the world was put to a pause due to a virus which we know is COVID-19 today. In the beginning, it was just a subject we would hear from time to time, but eventually it revealed itself to the world with great speed, moving from one country to another. This is due to the different versions of the viruses causing higher transmission among humans, as changes in its structure allows it to adapt to its surroundings/environment. In other words, coronavirus has indeed mutated from its original form and has become more infectious. It's like when an individual tries to gain muscles to be stronger. Over time, their physical appearance changes, right? Well, that's exactly how viruses work. But first, let's discuss how these viruses get into our body. COVID-19 tends to initiate in the nasal cavity in the turbinate bones, which project into the nasal passages. In the membrane of these turbinate bones are ciliated cells which can be easily infected by the virus, as it contains a receptor the virus attaches itself to, ACE2, which we will talk about later in the video. On top of that, the ciliated cell secretes mucus, which traps particles of dust, bacteria, and other foreign matter. Since a virus often attacks through the nose and gets trapped by the mucus, it eventually gets expelled by sneezing or coughing, allowing COVID-19 to spread easily among humans. Secondly, let's talk about its structure that's causing it to be more contagious. Basically, coronavirus evolves and gradually changes because it is an RNA virus. The genes of these viruses tend to quickly mutate and change because of its unstable genetic material, causing frequent mutations like Omicron, which is a mutation of coronavirus. Compared to the other variants, Omicron has proven to be more infectious because of its spike protein that causes it to infect 10 times as many cells as previous variants. The spike protein is a significant exterior feature where the mutations are found and is also the main factor of how viruses get into our cells. As these mutations occur, it increases the number of spikes, allowing it to easily attach and enter the human cells. According to Dr. Margakis, a senior director of infection prevention in the Johns Hopkins Health System, the Omicron variant is responsible for the largest surge since 2019. It is a perfect storm where mutations gave it the ability to escape weak immune responses and become more transmissible from person to person. How does the transmission begin, you ask? Well, let's look deeper into how the viruses interact with the human cells. Coronavirus's RNA genome has over 29,000 nucleotides encoding for 29 proteins, including the protein spikes. These S proteins cover the outer membrane surface, which binds to a receptor called angiotensin converting enzyme 2, also known as ACE2, to hack into its host cells, which can be found in the nose, like I said earlier. Not to mention, it is also made up of two parts, S1 and S2, which sticks itself at two sites to push the peptide against the ACE2. Due to the hydroxide present in RNA's nucleotides, it causes it to be unstable as it is more prone to hydrolysis. The instability is what causes it to quickly mutate and change. Therefore, as these variants have an increased number of spikes due to mutation, the easier they are able to bind with ACE2. And after it binds with ACE2, its state changes where its features may help it to hide from the immune system and survive longer in the environment. But in some cases, the spikes can go from its original shape into the after form prematurely without having to bind to a cell. It can also contain two forms of the spike protein where the after form sticks out more from the virus surface. This helps the virus from breaking down, like on surfaces for example, which counts as a factor of why it is more contagious, as it remains operable on various surfaces for a longer period of time. As mentioned earlier, Omicron is more infectious than the other variants because it is also caused by its exceptional ability to hide from the immune system. But even so, the presence of these variants can differ based on their environment. Beth Korber, a computational biologist at the Los Alamos National Laboratory, thought that the fast spread of certain variants is an example of meaningful natural selection. This is where the environment puts pressure on variations of organisms, or in this case viruses, and selects the most favorable variation to survive. Because of this, it leads to allopatric speciation, where the population evolves into separate species as a result of geographic isolation, like the transfer of virus from one country to the other. Eventually, the gene pool of the two populations becomes distinct from each other, as the other is more likely to change to become new species, which can be between a small population separating from parent population. In this case, this geographic isolation causes the appearance of COVID-19 variants like Omicron, Delta, Gamma, Beta, and Alpha. In fact, these variants have all been identified as variants of concern, where they appear to spread more easily and quickly than others. However, we have to remember that each one emerges independently and has unique mutations as it triggers a genetic drift founder effect during isolation. This founder effect is a random loss/change of alleles when some individuals separate from its original population. Sooner or later, the new population ends up having limited diversity due to carrying only some alleles, which may not be typical of the population they came from, so previously rare alleles may increase in frequency like alpha. Alpha is about 50 times more transmissible than the original form. And as time went by, Delta overpowered Alpha as it was believed to be 2 times more transmissible than this. This is also evident when we look at Omicron, which right now is the most infectious variant as their rare alleles, the increase in frequency, resulted with an increase in spike proteins. Actually, a few labs worked with infectious mutations of the virus and tested in lab animals like ferrets and hamsters. It was discovered that the mutated viruses were more infectious than the unmutated ones as they were present at larger levels in the airways of infected hamsters. And the same applies to humans' airway tissues and linings as well. So in conclusion, yes, the variants of COVID-19 have become more infectious, which is caused by the mutations that commonly happen in RNA viruses. However, remember that this doesn't automatically mean that it is more dangerous because higher transmission of the virus only relates to the speed of its spread. Since a virus will continue to mutate and create new variants because this is its nature, well, I think it's best to keep our distance for now and follow proper safety measures. Just remember, it's better to take action than to cause further infection.